curator at the Louvre, asking if they can open up a new section and how exactly you hang a picture of an Arsenal goal. This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. Goals so nice they should be hanging in the Louvre, but how do you hang a goal in the Louvre? That's going to be the funny thing, isn't it? 20 years from now, you're going to go to a museum and there's going to be GIFs or TikTok videos. That's what's going to hang, which is maybe a sad development, maybe a good development. Let's not be curmudgeonly, because it means we can put the goals from this Watford game into the Louvre, into a museum, which is where they belong. Beautiful, stunning, sensational goals scored by Arsenal. And because Arsenal believe in entertainment value, we just made it exciting at the end. You don't want a snooze fest. Who wants a snooze fest? I mean, especially if you're, like West Coast Americans or, I was fortunate, 8 a.m. kickoff, but, Scott, who's on the Insurrection Pod, 6 a.m. kickoff, got to keep him awake. And Arsenal did that too. So I think we can all feel good about that. And even gave us a chance to have a little laugh at United with abject futility, especially in the second half of the Manchester Derby, taking 0 shots, producing 0 expected goals, and going to war with one giant egomaniac striker. So it's all going swimmingly over there. The meltdowns of the United punditry was something to behold. I really enjoyed it. And so we will celebrate the win, the move into top 4, and all the ramifications thereof, and all the good performances therein with Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Paul, you can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo! And it's pronounced Louvre.
Louvre, in the Louvre. Yep, that's right.
In the Louvre.
And Clive is at the back of the pod. So if you want to hear Clive, he will be coming on after the break. If you don't want to hear Clive, then when the break hits, you can just, end the podcast. Don't do that, though. I don't hurt his feelings. This guy's sensitive. Okay. Tim, I guess the best place to start, in my view, when you have a game like this, is just the goals. Mm-hmm. All 3 of them, absolutely sensational. We'll set Martinelli's aside just for a moment. The Odegaard-Saka partnership is really taking on the kind of level of quality that can get your imagination running wild. Mm-hmm. And you think about really great teams, and they have these partnerships that really capture the imagination. Usually one creative player and one attacking player. In this case, Saka creating for Odegaard, Odegaard creating for Saka. They are posing a real problem for defenses. Saka cannot be marked by one man. Odegaard finds little pockets of space. That, whatever you want to call it, pirouette, back heel thing he does in the build-up to the goal is just stunning. Saka at one point in the game, Ramsdale fires the ball out to him long from a goal kick, and it looks like it's going to go out in a touch, and he not only controls it with one touch, but controls it with like a flick forward, so he's on the sprint. They're both really at the peak of their powers right now, but it's the partnership, I think, that's making them look so special.
Yeah, 100%. It's that old one of my preferred kind of all-encompassing football philosophies: put your good players close together.
Seems to make sense.
And things will happen. This was always my argument for playing Sanchez up front. Kind of just off Ozil, just because it puts those 2 closer together, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I think you could see that the potential, like when we bought Odegaard, because we had him on loan, right? We knew a little bit about him. We knew that he liked to go over into that right half space, and so you think, okay, that's going to bring him closer to Saka. So you knew the potential was there, and they're both really good players. So, and again, one of the great hallmarks of really good players is that they understand the qualities of those around them. This for me was always Cesc Fabregas's greatest asset, and I know you guys made that comparison a little bit in the Instant Reaction podcast, but Fabregas's greatest asset for me was recognising the strength in others. So when he was playing a through ball to Theo Walcott, he knew to play it along the floor, and when he played one for Adebayor, he knew to whack it up to his chest. Just little things like that. And when he was passing the ball to Hleb, he knew to run forward because Hleb's not going to shoot or anything, but he's also not going to lose the football. And what you're starting to see is just the intelligence of these 2 players. And the really nice thing about it as well is they've got really contrasting qualities, which are really interesting. So just imagine for a second, you're a left back up against those 2. Either Odegaard is going to flick the ball around you or pass it around you. If you don't commit. If you do commit, Saka's going to run round you. He's going to run through you. And that's an incredibly difficult problem to solve. So not only have you got 2 players who can play fast one-touch football, they really smash the ball into each other sometimes. Sometimes it's very delicate and they flick, but, that ball moves and it will move quicker than you can. But even if you think you can deal with that, then it's like, well, okay, well then Saka will run through you, and that's just so important to have both things. It's so important to have, that having like the technical wherewithal to pick your way around a team, and then having the kind of, I guess, the speed, the acceleration, because that just tires defenders out. Just imagine, like, even if you think you can deal with that for half an hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, like for 90 minutes, your head would be spinning after a little while. And I always felt that last season that partnership perhaps didn't quite get there. And I think that's just because we moved Saka around a bit. He was on the left sometimes he was on the right. Odegaard, I think it's clear, as much as, I feel a bit smug because I really, really like this player and really, really wanted us to get him. And to be fair, don't think it was difficult to spot the talent there. But I think it's very clear that he's gone up levels in the last few weeks, and he's spoken about feeling at home, personally, but I think also tactically, he really kind of knows the job at the moment. And so, you trust players like that to work it out. You just think, just keep them nice and close together and they'll work it out. And it's such a lovely mixture of qualities. But ultimately, what we haven't had for a long, long time that very few teams can cope with, if you can go one touch and you can, move that ball at pace, one touch, flicks around the corner, Saka, something I don't think we speak about enough with Saka is the fact that he can go on both sides. That he can go with his right foot as well. He'll go on the outside of you. He'll go on the inside of you. It's very difficult to read. That's something Odegaard could develop as well. But it's so difficult for defenses to deal with. And yeah, I'm massively enthused about it. I think these are our two best players, more than likely. Although it's nice to think, or is it Partey, or am I like being down on Smith Rowe here? Like, it's really nice to finally be looking at players and thinking, who actually is our best player? But I do think it's those two, and the kind of the confluence of them together is very effective, and it's great fun.
Yeah, I had this little laugh earlier today, picturing like Martinelli going up to Saka in the dressing room and being like, "Come on, I'll give you a car. What do you want? I'll get you something. Just let me have 10 minutes on the right flank. Just 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Because any attacking player is going to want to play alongside Odegaard in this form. And the thing that's so crazy about the guy, 78 passes. Like, think of, Paul, I hate to bring up toothpaste, but I feel like I must do it. Like, our leading passers were always, defenders, Granit Xhaka. Like, now it's our 8/10 playing 78 passes in a game and completing 70 of them. Normally when you see the really good creative players in the league, they have like a 70% completion percentage because they're trying such a high volume of difficult passes, right? Odegaard's trying difficult passes and completing them at like 90%. It's staggering. And I love the way that right flank is working, but I think it's working also because we've compressed everything into smaller spaces that lets them really get closer together. The distances look so good. So I think Arteta deserves huge credit for the way this system has evolved, such that, it's all well and good to say Odegaard and Saka are your best players. But are they your best players if Odegaard's at the midway line and, Partey's in our defensive third and Saka's standing on the touchline 30 yards away? Because that's kind of the shape we were in at times earlier in the season. And that's definitely not the case now. Paul, of the two goals, the Odegaard goal and the Saka goal, we'll get to the Martinelli one in a bit. Do you have a preference?
The Odegaard goal, I think it's highly significant because it's Odegaard charging into the box on the end of the move and putting it away. And we need goals beyond Saka and Smith Rowe and Martinelli. We need Odegaard goals. We need Lacazette goals. I'm still giving Lacazette the goal from last week, which he allegedly scored.
He certainly needs one.
Yeah.
Two nice assists, but still no goals.
Yeah. 7 assists in 9 games and a goal allegedly. He's doing it by other methods, but I think the Odegaard one was highly significant, and it involves both of them. It's a thing of beauty. That back heel, like before he came to Arsenal, I had spotted the back heel thing. And I think he had like 4 in this game, so it doesn't take a genius to spot that Odegaard likes a back heel.
Mm-hmm.
What was really interesting was the like those United pundits that flood the airwaves. So Paul Scholes was doing a bit on that goal, and he says something like, "It's a fantastic goal. We're not sure if he means the back heel, but if he did, it was a very, very good goal." And I'm thinking, do you know anything about Martin Odegaard? Like, to deny the powers of his back heel, and it really is the back heel that just flips that chance open because it's so quick, so good, perfect spot, fast ball, and Saka's through, and a great cutback, absolutely peach of a cutback. And Odegaard controls it and guides it past the keeper, and he knows he's scored as soon as he's struck it. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's the penetrative run, and I think that's what turns Cesc on to tweeting, because it was such the Odegaard run and the cleverness of all, and the quickness of mind and ball, and then Fabregas was not the most athletic player in the world, but he'd still rip you apart with his runs, the give, the go, the run into the box. And he'd carve them open and like put it in the back of the net. And it was so Cesky that even Cesc had to have his say on it, saying that this was the future of Arsenal. Saka and Odegaard with a fire emoji. And the man's probably not wrong.
No, not wrong at all. I mean, I do have to laugh. Tim must have been tearing his hair out, though. There was a nice little section there in this game. Maybe it was in the second half, where we maybe spurned 3 good chances or opportunities to create good chances because no one would use their weaker foot. No one would use their weaker foot.
Well, then Lacazette eventually did. There was that one where, again, Odegaard was probably in a very good position to shoot and would have had it been on his left foot. But then it's like, oh, no, I'll lay it back to you. After you. And then eventually Lacazette took a big old swipe at it on the swinger left foot. I think it was closer to a throw-in than a goal. But
Odegaard's flick, just to make you happy, Tim, was with his weak foot.
It was indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, like that's definitely something to develop for that player. And I don't really understand why footballers seem to be so reluctant to do that. It strikes me as something that you could bring up a weak foot to a basic level of competence quite easily, like Van Persie did it quite quickly. And he wasn't amazing on his right foot, but he could swipe the ball when he needed to, and that's kind of a bare minimum, isn't it? And honestly, I know I go on about it a lot, but it gives you so many more angles. It really, really does. And yeah, there are a few players. And to be fair, a lot of the players Arteta's bought, I think the fact that they can go 2 ways has been important to him. Like Tomiyasu's very comfortable on his left. I think even Ramsdale's pretty decent on both feet. Obviously, Tavares is very 2-footed. I do think that there's an element to which that is a bit of a priority for him. And we've seen Saka do it. I don't remember Saka's right foot being that great when he first came into the team, but now it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Saka that I think always surprises me is his physicality. When he has to stick his backside into a defender and hold them off, or ride a challenge, he is not a slight guy. And one of the things that's changing as these guys get older, it turns out they're growing, they're getting bigger and stronger. And like Odegaard and Saka and Martinelli, like players I would have thought of as small and slight, they're not really small and slight anymore, are they? And there's a robustness there. Yeah,
and particularly with Saka, he's he's always got his arm out. He's always like fending people, and that's another thing when he takes the ball out of the air as well. One of the things that enables him to do that is he's quite often got his arm out, keeping players away from him. And there was I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was in the second half where Pepe got a ball a bit like that. And I don't want to just get stuck into Pepe for no reason, but
but here goes.
but I'm going to.
Yeah,
but like he didn't do that. Do you know what? And I was like that. There's like a key difference between him and Saka. Like if Pepe's got his back to goal, he's not turning you. He needs to get the ball facing the goal because he hasn't got that, like putting his arm out and, getting rid of the opponent, whereas Saka is. And to be fair, the comparison is unflattering because I think Saka might be one of the best players in the world at doing that already, just spinning players. He's so good at it, and I think it's such an underrated commodity, and it's one of the reasons that, again, he's another one who's going to another level, I think, at the moment. But one of the reasons I always thought he just always plays is because nobody else can do that, who can just take you from like a moderate value area into a dangerous area so quickly because he's so good at spinning players. And it's an amazing and very, very handy skill to have in a winger.
Yeah, and he gets his goal, by the way, because he basically bullies someone off the ball and wins it back, which is beautiful. And if you haven't seen it yet, Tim, or those of you listening, hi, Mom. There's a video going around that sort of supercuts a Messi Champions League goal and a Bukayo Saka scoring yesterday, and they're basically the same exact sort of movement, touch, finish. Because Bukayo Saka is as good as Lionel Messi, I think is the exact point there, and that can't really be contested. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Yeah, 100%. Oh, you know what, Tim, but before we get back to Paul, it came up in the instant reaction. It's been kind of going around on Twitter. It sounds ridiculous to say, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway and ask you. If you had to swap Odegaard for Premier League player right now, and not like right now for the balance of the season, but right now for the project we're trying to build for the trajectory we're on, that's not a big group of players. There's no one I can say with certainty that's definitely the guy. Some people have thrown out like a Phil Foden. I've seen Bernardo Silva thrown out. He's going to be 28 in August. So as you know, to me, that means he's basically,
dead.
Got one for the dead, one for the grave. Like, forget football. He should just stop living altogether. But who's in the cluster of players for you, if anyone?
Yeah, not very many. And I will say, in response to the instant reaction, I think Mason Mount's very good.
That is a reference to the fact that when Scott listed Mason Mount, my reaction was shouting expletives. Let's just put it that way. But I take your point. Yes, a lot of people have told me.
Let's not turn this into the Chelsea Vision podcast.
No, please, God. Soon they're going to be back in the Championship or out of business or whatever, so it doesn't matter. But
I think he is a very good player for very subtle reasons, but not as good as Odegaard, and obviously doesn't do the same things either. It's because like Liverpool don't really even play with a number 10, do they?
Would you swap him for Alexander-Arnold? He's a unicorn. Alexander-Arnold is he's a unicorn.
That's a very interesting question. Actually, I'm not even sure because like we've actually got quite a good right back. Not that good.
Totally different, right? You couldn't pick two different types of players.
Odegaard would be the better defender.
You know what? You know why I wouldn't pick Alexander-Arnold? It's very simple. I think in order for unicorn fullbacks really only make you exceptional if you already have awesome forwards. Like Dani Alves, right, was out of this world. But I think he was so good in that Barcelona team because look at the forwards he was delivering for. So if you lose Odegaard,
our forwards are shit. So Odegaard's
they're bad.
the one
Exactly.
for us.
Saka, Martinelli, who would want them? No, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
And also, like if you have a fullback like Alexander-Arnold, you have to build a midfield that will like basically play that space. And who do you want Partey at right back? Covering him. Do you want Shaka at right back covering?
Don't start.
So in short, like no one really comes to mind, and certainly not James Maddison. Put it that way.
No, not James Maddison, not Emi Buendia, not Houssam Aouar, although he might make a nice left 8, which we might need eventually. The funny thing is, one of the reasons I didn't think we should go for Odegaard this summer was because I thought it was absurd that we could get him, and we shouldn't waste our time focusing on getting an Odegaard for 60, 70 million when we probably couldn't get him. Not only did we get him, but we got him for a fraction of what he should have been, and it just looks like a damn steal is what it looks like.
There are a lot of clubs out there at the moment, I'm sure, who are going, shit. we should have gone for that. I made the comparison on Twitter, and again, I caveated this heavily when I tweeted it as well. I'm not comparing the player to the influence and all of that, but it's just a throwback to me for us picking up Bergkamp, Vieira, Henry, and I realised they were all in Italy, but getting their big move, not quite doing it, no one really being interested, Arsenal coming in, and then everyone going, "Ah, shit, we should have seen that." Like, if you get it right, buying a player that didn't quite make it a super club can be quite good. I think, like, at this stage of the
Alexis
career,
and Ozil in that group, by the way.
yeah. I think, they have to be at this stage of the career, so it doesn't feel like a big step down or anything. But Odegaard, he said in that Norwegian TV interview, didn't he? He was like, I was on loan a lot, and I think he kind of knew the Madrid thing was never happening. And with Madrid don't buy players, they buy toys. And I think Odegaard was a nice toy for them when he was 16, and he was like, the most rated 16-year-old. But by the time he got to 2021, they got some other new toys. And so, like, I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of Real Madrid, but, like, I'm sure even Real Madrid are watching him at the moment thinking, maybe.
Well, they're still trotting out Modric and Kroos and the likes of them. Like,
At
need to be replaced.
At the very least, they're thinking, we underpriced this guy. Put it that way.
Yeah, it was a steal. Now, Paul, the interesting thing about this game is, like, as we do move up the pitch and as we do play more advanced and we've got this attack now really clicking in a lot of exciting ways, we're starting to see a little bit more basketball come into our game. And I know it's annoying Arteta. He spoke about it a bit. He wanted us to kill off the game with, I think he said 300,000 passes in their half. I loved hearing that quote because that's exactly what I agree we should be doing. And we don't want to go back to the bad old days of trying to kill off a game with a lead by sitting deep and just, trying to resist the waves of attack, which we didn't do in this game. And I hope we don't do again. But do you have some thoughts on how we got a little stretched in this game? There was an early warning sign. I mean, they had a goal in, like, the first, minute that was offside. And to be fair, we held the line well. Like, it's good defending. And also, to be fair, one of their goals is not one you can legislate for, which is a guy jumping 5 feet in the air and shinning it in with a bicycle kick. But there were a lot of big chances for Watford in this game, and a lot of them came just kind of running through us in a very basic way. So do you have thoughts on how they were able to turn this game into maybe more basketball than we would have liked?
Yeah, look, I think we're learning as we go. I kind of did this analogy on the Instant Reaction podcast, which is we got a lot of talented players, but it's maybe not until this game we've seen brilliance in the box. And part of that is just we haven't been in the box until recently. They're learning, right? They're learning to do in game what they haven't had a chance to do before. They've had all the skills. They've done all this shit in practice. They just haven't done it in the games because we haven't been in the box. Well, now we're a team that creates brilliant chances, great goals, and it felt like a game where we could have scored 5 or 6. And the next thing we need to learn is that when you're playing great one end, it doesn't stop you getting taken apart the other end if you don't do the work. And so Arteta talked about it in the presser afterwards, that he talked about energy, commitment, but also structure. Like, we just dropped our guard. It's like a boxing match where you're hitting the other guy and your jabs and it's all working and, like, your punches are landing, and the next thing the guy smacks you in the face and you're like, holy shit, I dropped my the gloves come down because you're having so much fun, but you've forgotten this guy can hit. And, like, while this may not have been the most impressive Watford team that has ever existed, and Sissoko may not be your idea of a world-class player, if he doesn't flub his touch or his pass, the guy is a 400-mile-per-hour brick shithouse who will tear through you if he doesn't screw up his touch, and he mostly didn't. And that was a wonder goal, and they did cut through us, and we kind of took them for granted. So I take this game as a learning game. We need to correct the signal, which is when it's going great one end, don't drop your guard. Don't become that other team. I don't think we will. Defensively, we've just been too good for too long. There's a bit of correction, a bit of staying alert. I think, we'll talk about the third goal. That was a goal all about alertness on the attacking end. And we need that flick, that switch flicking every time we lose possession the other direction to say, or rather sensing that moment where we may lose possession and put ourselves in a situation people tuck in, get the shape right, and be ready for the counter. That's stuff that City does. That's stuff that Liverpool does to make sure they don't get countered when they're down in the attacking. We haven't spent enough time in the attacking third in the penalty box, being dominant, being brilliant, that we are good at sensing when the ball's about to spill and we could be in trouble. So this is new territory for us, and I think we're about to adjust to it. We're a learning machine. We will learn.
Yeah, and I mean, please, yeah, because I think there is more meat on this bone. Yeah,
I just wanted to come in on that briefly because I think where we're where most of us are getting to, I know I'm getting to, is like is, I guess, trusting the process, for want of a better phrase, But do you remember, like, back in October, November, December, when, we'd go 1-0 up and then we'd sit back and you go, oh, Jesus, what's this about? And Arteta kept insisting that's not what he was telling them to do.
Yeah.
And at the time, some of us definitely was a little bit dubious.
You can say
about
me
that.
too. I'm right here.
I was definitely a little bit dubious because I was like, well, why the hell do they keep doing it then? Like, what's, I don't think I ever felt this polemic about it, but like either you're lying or they're not doing what you say, and either of those things is bad. But I think actually we can take Arteta at his word now that he wasn't telling them to do that, because they're not doing it anymore. And so I think what we're seeing here is like some finessing of the formula. And I think that Arteta, again, I don't speak for everyone, has probably got enough credit at the moment that you think, okay, this isn't like a flaw in the coaching. This is finessing the formula. And also, like, every game has its own story, right? Like, something else completely different will probably happen in the next game, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about whether it's like a theme or a worry, and then it will never happen again, and we won't ever discuss it again, and we'll forget we ever discussed it in the first place. Like, there is a degree to which sometimes in a game just stuff happens, and it's not necessarily endemic of like a wider problem or anything like that. Like, I do think, we conceded late against Brentford when we should have been controlling that. We conceded late against Watford when we should have been controlling that. And it was quite interesting, actually, where he made that 300,000 passes comment, because did you see that stat from the last 15 minutes of the Manchester derby?
Yeah,
where City had 92% possession.
I mean, that's capitulation by net. We'll come on to that, actually, but yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but it kind of is, but it's kind of like, what the hell do you do about that when a team is that good that they can just strangle the life out of a game like that? And that's clearly what Arteta wants, right? It's 3-1, and then they don't see the ball again for 15 minutes, and then like you said, they step onto you, you get in behind them, and things like that.
Yeah, to your point, Tim, like, Arteta wasn't after the game that he came out with that comment. It was. You could see he was agitated. We scored a second goal, and instead of celebrating, he went nuts on the sideline, going off at Shaka. Not I don't think aimed at him, but like at what we were doing. Later on in the game, you can see him super agitated about the energy levels and the focus. And there were actually periods, I would say, in that second half where we did the death by 1,000 passes for short periods, where like you could see what we were trying to do, and then we did stupid passes for no good reason. And so you can see, if you want to, you can see the work in progress there. Like, it's not like he thought afterwards, maybe we got that wrong. He knew even when we went up to 2-1, we were doing this wrong. Right, we didn't have the control. He had that sense that, like, this is not safe, and we're going to make this a hell of a lot harder than we need to, and it came to pass.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you look at the way City and Liverpool play, and especially City, by the way, they press really high up the pitch, but like if they get bypassed, they do some snide shit. They take a foul, right? They do all kinds of crazy shit to stop getting exposed if you get around their press. And I mean, we did that against Wolves. One of my favorite examples of this is Ben White giving the ball away and then kicking what's his name to prevent him from getting in behind him. I just thought we were maybe a little too casual in this game. And when there was danger, we just kind of let it happen. But the other thing, and Tim, maybe there's something that we have to appreciate too, is now that we're going to be up the pitch more, pressing more, attacking more, our defenders are going to have to do more defending in space sometimes or exposed sometimes. They're not going to have 7 players around them cutting down every angle. And, that's going to create some challenges. I mean, the irony is Watford's 2 goals, one of them comes from not much of a chance, I don't think you'd say. And the other one comes from just a bad Shaka giveaway and a transition. They created some bigger chances. I think just came from some poor defending in space or not really holding a line perfectly. And I think we've sort of not seen any flaws in White and Gabriel's game in particular because they haven't had to do a lot of defending on their own. Now they're going to have to. And and by the way, I think they're great and I think they will do great, but we're just going to see a couple more examples of defenders being exposed and having to handle more high leverage situations,
Yeah, definitely. And I do think, what's going on at right back probably influences that as well, because when you've got Tomiyasu, it's almost like a third centre half. And obviously Cedric is a very different type of player. And he's probably added to our attacking game. So give him due credit for that, but it's probably taken a little something from our defensive game. So that I think there's an element of that as well. But definitely, like, you're going to, if that's the trade-off of being an attacking team, you're going to get exposed. It's quite interesting because I came into watching this game straight after watching the women's game, and they were 3-0 up with 15 minutes to go and let 2 goals in. And then it was a little bit nervy. They got another goal in stoppage time, but I spoke to the manager about it afterwards, and he said the lesson for us in this game is to keep attacking. He said the problems came when we stopped. And then he said when we were a bit nervous after the second goal, and he said something like, I didn't like the 2 minutes after their second goal because you could see our players just wanted the game to end. And he was saying, you've got to keep attacking because otherwise when you don't do that, that's when mistakes happen. Because his basically idea was that if you're attacking, if you make a mistake, you make it on the edge of the opponent's area. Whereas if you're sitting in and you've got the ball in your own half and things like that, you're more likely to make a mistake in a much more dangerous area. And I felt that was probably applicable to this game as well. We looked irresistible when we were going for that 4th goal and looked like we were going to get it. And I get what Arteta means as well about having 300,000 passes. But then I think the second part of that comment is the interesting one where he says, and then they come at you and then you get in behind them and you pick your moments. So his idea of having 300,000 passes isn't just keeping the ball, albeit that's a good part of it. It's also with it's with the idea that, and then they'll come for you and then you can go in behind them. It's with the idea of getting that next goal. And that's, I'm enthusiastic about that. I think Arteta's been talking about this for a while and I kind of doubted it because I wasn't seeing it, but I am seeing it now. And so I kind of give him, I guess, and the team that leeway a little bit because they have learned these lessons during the season, and I'm seeing evidence that they're learning them.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why, Paul, ultimately, football leads to so many arguments, whether it's player evaluation or game performance, because everybody sees the game a little differently, and everyone wants something different from the game. I confess, I loved this game. And I know some people were annoyed by it. The openness, the way we let them back in it. I just love seeing us score picture book goals and attack in waves and create, if not chances, nearly chances. And if I had a frustration in this game, ironically, it wasn't our defense. It was the way the left-hand pod didn't really fire, didn't really, create the opening so that we could really break them open. The way, maybe there were a couple of moments on the counter where Lacazette waited a little too long to make a decision, because I see this as sustainably successful football. I think if you look at where we are right now and the way we're playing and the goals we're scoring with, probably some additional strengthening in the summer to come from goal scoring type players, I think you can win things with that. I don't think it's any coincidence that lately, if you look at the top of the league, you're going to find the teams that score the most. Granted, they also happen to be the teams that concede the least. So there goes my argument. But you know what I'm saying, Paul? So for everyone's going to get a little different, something different from football. And the way we are playing right now, if you score 3 goals, you're going to win more often than not. And so, yeah, we kind of let them back in it, but it always looked like we had a 4th or a 5th in us too. I love the way we're playing. So while I recognize that we might start to see some defensive openness that is a change from what we had seen, if it comes with us creating so many more opportunities to score goals, then I don't have a problem with that. I think that's the right trade-off.
I see where you're going, but that seems, for me, that would be almost retrograde. That'd be like kind of mid to late era Arsene Wenger period.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where you had to choose one or the other. And I think what we've seen with Liverpool and City and with Barcelona and the very, very best attacking teams of this new generation is it's not one or the other. In fact, if you've got one, it has to be the other as well. There are different ways of doing it. Liverpool does it their way with just the pressure, the intensity and the physicality that when they lose the ball, they go to get it back almost immediately. City does it with control and more passing. Arteta will find his nuance of it. But we brought in White and Gabriel as our centre-back pairing so we could push up the pitch and be front-footed.
Yeah.
We do not want to be... This was great fun. And I agree with you. I love this game, but I don't want this to be our template going forward because against the big teams, you can't do that. And against middle-level teams who are a little more effective, it's just too crazy. You need some level. At some stage, your team gets rattled. And in a couple of games' time, after 2 or 3 of these and an unlucky result, they start losing their confidence as well in terms of attacking. So you have to be able to close the back door. And so I just see this as a progression along the way. We've kind of overcorrected in terms of how attacking we were. It's not really, again, the attacking. It's the moment you're about to lose the ball is the thing we're not attuned to. We've just got to tighten that up. So when that moment comes, everybody's like, get in your positions. The corrections come in and you can have both. You can have this attacking. I agree that like the big issue out of this game is what's going on the left-hand side. It may not be a million miles off, or it may be a striker who can get on the end of Tierney crosses, or it may be an upgrade in
a left 8 who's a little better in small spaces.
Yeah, it could be an upgrade in what, a Gundogan instead of a Shaka there. Shaka's done pretty well the last few games. This game, but like there's more, even in his good games, you don't have that run into the box, the danger on the end of the ball. I think when you have all of that, you will also have more technical security the moment you lose the ball. That's what it's all about. The reason we were open and this was end to end was because the moment we were about to lose the ball, we were off it. And again, look at Arteta for the third goal, right? He's already the reason we beat
Arteta
Watford
already had a pre-assist in the game.
Yeah. The reason we beat Watford, this is my theory, is because Roy Hodgson is 103 and Arteta is still sharp and match fit and got on the end of that and got the ball to Saka for the throw in, and that's our third goal. Like, it's the anticipation of the next moment, and our tuning was off for this. We were all like, oh, this is, we can look at this, flicks, etc., etc. Well, you got to be anticipating the moment before you lose the ball, and we're not quite there yet. But then we haven't been doing this for very long. It's a few games and maybe no game quite like this. I think we dazzled them. Like, we put the goalkeeper catatonic on the ground for our second and third goal, but I think we might have dazzled ourselves a bit too and fallen in love with just how well we were slicing and dicing them.
There were a few extravagant flicks and things going on there. I don't think we necessarily switched on. Like, there was one moment where Odegaard missed a chance to play someone in, I think it was, and he slumps his shoulders and he walked, like, kind of like, we could add another goal.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Watford go off on a counter, and then Odegaard, like, snaps alive, and he's like, oh, shit, I need to chase back, right? Yeah. Like, I'm going to get benched. So, I mean, there was maybe just a little bit too much of a sense of this is going to be easy that crept in there. And overall, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, the interesting thing, though, Tim, that I'm trying to reckon with, imagine if we had an Odegaard on the left-hand side. And then people say, well, this isn't FIFA. We'd be so open. But, like, Are you going to tell me Odegaard is more of a defensive liability than Shaka? Like, Odegaard chases back, Odegaard tackles, Odegaard recovers ball. And like, this is not an anti-Shaka point. It's the point that like a guy who had that kind of understanding of small spaces and through balls and could crash into the box and sort of float outside around the forward or, tuck inside. Like, we have that on the right. And on the left, we have a guy playing a fairly static fixed point position who, again, I get it if you were going to say, well, he's meant to be more the defensive stability, but I don't think any of us would say Granit Xhaka running 60 yards back towards his goal is a strength of his. So I don't think it's absurd to say the next level here is there's only one Odegaard, but an Odegaard-ish guy on the left.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really glad actually Clive's not on this podcast because I'm going to say something that will make him furious. But like, you kind of feel like Danny Ceballos would fit into this team a lot better than.
Thank God he can't hear you. To be fair, I wish I hadn't heard you, but I take your point.
Which is not the same as saying that I think he's good and we should get him back.
Why not just Sambi Lokonga then?
Like,
little small space.
Yeah. Like, I think if I was Sambi Lokonga, my eyes would be lighting up and thinking, yeah, I could play that position. I think the thing is, I don't think it's so much Xhaka's defensive contribution. I think it's more the building than the kind of the off-ball stuff. So, him kind of going back, shuffling back alongside Partey and being that double pivot, like it moves, right? It's like the accordion. It goes in and out, and like sometimes
and he's doing fine with that.
Yeah. He's doing fine with it, and I like, in a way, I feel sorry for him because I think I've used this analogy before, but there's a Futurama episode where the main character Fry goes to this other planet and he accidentally kills the Emperor. And on that planet, if you kill the Emperor, you become the Emperor. And when he's doing his coronation, he's looking on all the pictures on the wall of the past emperors. And then like there's a picture of him and it's like Emperor Fry. And then the two pictures to the right are the guy that kills Emperor Fry. And then the one after is the guy that kills Emperor Fry's killer. And that's a bit like Xhaka at the moment. He must be playing this role going, I'm digging my own grave here. I know that like this isn't my role. Like, I'm keeping this warm for someone else. And yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's fine at the moment, but I think it definitely needs addressing in the summer. What I would say as well, I'm kind of happy just to keep it as it is for now, just because it's working. But I think there is potential for like a good substitution in there in a game perhaps that isn't going our way or where we need a goal, of like having Smith Rowe there. I wouldn't start like that personally. I do think you need to keep some of these subs in your back pocket just in case and not play all your cards at once. Which is why I'm quite comfortable with one of our really good attackers being on the bench, whoever it is at the moment. Actually, two of them, because at the moment you've got either one of Smith Rowe or Martinelli on the bench and Pepe. That's fine. That's good. Having two good attackers on the bench is good. It's not a problem. And yeah, I do like the idea of perhaps one of those subs being, 65 minutes perhaps. What's it like, home to Leicester? Let's say it's 0-0. Smith Rowe for Xhaka in that left eight. That strikes me as like a good thing to have up your sleeve. If you're pressing like a team back and you're fairly comfortable there. So it's fine at the moment, but I think it definitely needs addressing in the summer. I think it probably will be. I think obviously they'll prioritise the striker, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got that left eight as well.
I think, they're the two obvious positions. And the fact is, like, if you look at the online debate people are having it, why is it like, Tavares should come in for Tierney? Tierney's not playing well. Or, Smith Rowe should play ahead of Martinelli. Martinelli's not playing well. But, like, you don't hear a lot of people saying who should come in for Shaka. And it's not because Shaka's the one that's playing the best of those three. It's that there isn't a tailor-made solution there. And so credit to Shaka. He's taking on that role and doing it in the way he can do it. And it leaves us to wonder, should Tavares come in for Tierney, who's maybe been a little off his best? I think one thing that's going to really rebalance this and bring the left side to life a little bit will be Tomiyasu coming back. And then Tierney can go overlap. That pushes Martinelli more central. But Paul, like, this is the funny thing, right? Martinelli spent most of the game out on the touchline, just giving the ball back to Tierney. Granit Xhaka played one pass to Gabriel Martinelli in this game. One pass to him, right? Like, Odegaard played 13 to Bukayo Saka. So, like, the supply lines are a little different there. But then you get that one glimpse because Odegaard gets into space for 1 minute at the top of the box and slams a finish into the back of the net. You know what it reminded me a little of? You remember Pepe's goal against Chelsea in the FA Cup final that's ruled out for offside. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Top of the box, left foot, slams into the back of the net first time. Just a stunning finish. Unfortunately, didn't count. Reminded me of that. The ball just explodes off his foot, and it looks so easy, but that is not an easy finish. And like, I do think sometimes, look, I still believe you have to contribute to the game as a whole. I think his tigerish work off the ball, pressing wasn't as evident in this game. And certainly he didn't get on the ball as much as you'd like, or wasn't as effective in it most of the game. But, when someone can do that, it keeps them fresh in your memory. And frankly, he probably needed it. He scored a few sensational goals this season. I'll give him that. But it's probably a goal he needed, right? I mean, if Smith Rowe's available for the Leicester game, based on how Martinelli was playing, maybe he would have had a shout for a start. And maybe that goal is just enough that Martinelli could say, all right, I've kept myself safe here.
Yeah, look, he's clearly a little isolated out on that side for whatever reasons. And it's something to do with the dynamic at the moment is Shaka, Tierney, and Martinelli. And they all kind of have their own little issues. But I think in part of it, it's also the fact everybody's on the other side. Like Partey leans that way, plays that way. If you look at Lacazette's touches, it's like you decide to go to two parties one evening. You go to the first party and it's great. And then you go on to the next party and it kind of sucks. So you slow down and you go back to the first party again. Like Lacazette's been over to the left side. It's not as much fun. I'm going back to the right side.
Where all the stuff's happening.
Yeah, where all the stuff's happening. And Partey's going to feed that. And partly that's by design, right? That's where I kind of talked about it before. That's the tiki-taka wing. Lots of clever players, clever touches. We pull them in that side, switch to the other side, which you could maybe say that's the narrative of the third goal. Maybe it's not quite that. But basically, we pull them over to the right-hand side and then switch to the left where Martinelli's coming kind of wide left center. And that's kind of the archetypal structure that we've got at the moment. The left wing is going to be more direct, a couple of passes up the pitch with speed, either Martinelli or Tierney overlapping. But it's still not quite ticking the way we would like it to. But then the question is, how much of a problem is that? Obviously, there's a chance for it to step up and to get better and for us to get more goals from that side on the days that they do manage to shut down Saka and Odegaard. But maybe then we'll start to cheat to the other side and have Lacazette spend more time there or push Partey a little bit more to that side so it gets fed. And maybe, obviously, not everything's humming along on that side, but I don't think there's an easy, quick fix short of just sticking Smith Rowe on the left and see if what we saw in a game or two when he played from that side and us looking really good, if that happens again. Until we get kind of Bernardo Silva or Gundogan or whoever it is sitting in that spot where Shaka is in the shape of the V. I think what's particularly interesting in these games is how good Partey is in your kind of Fernandinho role, your Rodri role. I mean, he really is nailing it down, really starting to feel it, the passes, so that we can keep in that shape. I had thought that Shaka hadn't actually played as much of that kind of forward eight in this game, but when I looked at it again, no. He pretty much does. The only time he slips back into the second pivot role is when we're under pressure. Like, it's basically all Partey, and he's great in this game, and somehow it goes under the radar as he swings it and zips it and handles the pressure. So obviously the opportunities on the left-hand side to get the real deal in that spot. Xhaka's doing goodish, doing pretty well, some games very well. But until we have that side, that player, that hub for that side, zipping it. And I think we underappreciate what Tierney could do for us because we don't have that aerial presence in the box. There's nothing wrong. He can be your Robertson, to some degree, your TAA on the left-hand side, swinging in really clever crosses if you have a guy who's going to get on the end of those, and we don't have that at the moment. Ironically, if it's anybody, it's probably Martinelli, and he's on the same side. If he were coming in with his head, which is his only option, from the right-hand side and getting on the end of those crosses, we might have a different feeling about it. And so there's a few things that don't quite add up on the other side, but maybe it's not a problem. It's just there's more on the table there we can get from that left-hand side. I think we've seen a better left-hand side too. We're just not really seeing it right at the moment.
Yeah, so all right, well, let's just finish this off with just a couple of things. Then Clive's going to come on and talk more about the left-hand side and about some of the issues in defense to finish this out. But look, I mean, the person who's come alive in this new setup is Thomas Partey. I think, again, there's just not much you can say other than for a guy who we were sort of waiting for him to be everything we hoped when we bought him, he's become that, and that's great to see. The other guy, though, who has really been central to everything we're doing in this new system is Alexander Lacazette. And before we go to him, I just want to say this is an interesting Lacazette game for me because Alexander Lacazette has 2 assists, nice assists, clever assists. I mean, they're still, not like big chances. It's not a tap in at the far post or anything. But there are those moments where you just can't help but be like, gosh, do the striker stuff, Alex. He had the one breakaway where he's just waiting for someone and waiting for someone, doesn't want to take it on. And then obviously there's the penalty. Now, to be fair, it probably is a penalty. This is one of those weird things where I can have 2 contradictory ideas. Like, I think it's probably a penalty.
That's most things, Elliot.
Yeah, to be fair. But I also think he can stay up. If he's, if that's a striker who's banging in goals, I think he could probably stay up there and just do something with it. So I continue to look at Lacazette as it ain't broke. He's doing the stuff we need to, and yet there are just going to be moments in games with Lacazette where you're like, oh, come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just where we're at with that, I think.
It's the same deal as with Shaka, really, isn't it? It's like he's doing it to like a good level at the moment, and obviously we aspire for more from someone else, but that ain't going to happen for a couple of months. It's not happening this season. So kind of what we have, what we hold. I think the interesting thing about Lacazette, I know I said this to you on Twitter, Elliot, is like, I guess how we judge some of those forwards, because you're right, Martinelli didn't do a lot in this game except score a great goal. And it's, like Martinelli is kind of the striker in this system, and it kind of feels like that if Lacazette's coming out with 2 assists and Saka and Martinelli are scoring the goals, like that is Arsenal's attack in a nutshell. All of the shots come from the wide players, all of the goals, all of the threat comes from the wide players. And like if Lacazette set up each one of the wide players for a goal each, and then Odegaard, did Odegaard get? Oh yeah, he scored, didn't he? Of course, but
he was quite nice.
So all of our front 4 had goal contribution. So they've kind of all done their job, but even if Odegaard didn't score, like that performance alone would have been enough to say, yeah, you've been brilliant today. Odegaard, I know this sounds weird. The important thing is not so much that Odegaard scored. That is important because we need more goals from him. But the important thing is him doing Odegaard things, and then for Saka and Martinelli to score, and for Lacazette to facilitate those 2 to score. So I almost feel like Lacazette's redemption really is that he comes out of this with 2 assists, and that's kind of imperfect, but probably one of the better metrics to judge him on at the moment. And then you judge, Saka gives you so much because he's a bit of a unicorn player, but then someone like Martinelli, you probably judge him like you judge a striker and kind of say...
That's a really good point. You know what? That's really good, because usually in the front line, you're going to have a lower touch player, and it's usually the striker. But our striker is getting a lot of touch. He's very involved in build-up. Martinelli is the guy getting on the end of stuff. And you know what I noticed in this game too? We had a lot of back post crosses for Martinelli, and he was just a little unlucky not to get on a few of them. But yeah, maybe he's the off the ball, far side of the pitch, come in at the end striker, as opposed to the, what Saka's doing, which is touch the ball a million times and be amazing. Same with Lacazette in his involvement.
He's replaced Aubameyang. That's what's happened. Yeah. It is not a coincidence that we're seeing this from Martinelli when Aubameyang's gone. That was always the blocker for him.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Paul, I think you're probably just going to say roughly the same thing.
Yeah, well, the Aubameyang point, for sure. Like, this was the role that Martinelli was that Aubameyang was envisaged for. This is what Arteta kept trying to do. I mean, there was a stat recently under Arteta, players who've made the most appearances for him. And Saka leads the charts, no surprise there. Number 2, Lacazette. Now, when you think of how much time we spent debating who should start and who should start where, in all of that, Lacazette's basically always been playing. You know, he's missed out a few games here and there where we tried a couple of things and when things weren't good. But like, there's really, he hasn't really blinked on Lacazette the whole time. He likes that Lacazette thing in the middle. He just does. And the other stat we saw recently was, of all Premier League teams, which team has the most attacking passing actions from the center zone of the, if you like, the 5 lanes.
Yeah, it creates the most chances from the central zones. Yeah.
Yeah. And shocker, it's Arsenal. That thing we always wanted, right? Now,
Zone 14. Come get some.
And 2 assists. That, like, the third goal there, that stabbed back spinner that Lacazette lays on a plate. Now, Martinelli still has to smack in a worldie, but he absolutely tees the ball up for Martinelli to smack it. And like, he knows what a striker wants in a shot because he used to be one. He's just, you know, how do we have, what magic are we working that we've access to central spaces? Well, we're doing a couple of things, but you know, our boy Lacazette is the anchor that's means we're doing what most other teams in the league are trying to do, creating most of their chances, and we're now creating kind of top 2, top 3-ish number of chances, XG, etc. And we're getting access to central spaces when that was always our biggest issue. So we all know he's doing a lot right. And, you know,
I think it's a sign of a good team that you can be playing well, winning games, and have such a clear identity now that when we start thinking about where can we improve, we very clearly know where we can improve because we very clearly know what we're trying to do. And yet, the players who are in that position are doing perfectly fine for now. So it's one for later. I'm going to bring Clive in to talk left side pod and defense, but that's going to do it for this section of the pod. So I will end it by simply saying Tim is on Twitter at Roberto. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woo!
All right, look, I know you've waited all this time to hear, Clive, but actually I have to tell you about your privates. Do you know about your privates? I think you know where they are. I think you know what they do. I think you know what they're about. But look, spring is here. It is a fecund period of the year. Things are growing. And when things are growing, they need to be trimmed. Let me tell you, if you have hedges and you don't trim them, it's bad for the hedges. If you have privates and you don't groom them, it's bad for the privates. So let's get it sorted out with Manscaped. Come on. Come on now. What are you waiting for? Don't delay. Don't hesitate. Take your shot. Don't be an Alexander Lacazette with the ball at your feet and the goal gaping. Be a Gabriel Martinelli or Bukayo Saka and do something extraordinary. Get the Lawnmower 4.0. That's what they would do. I bet that's what they do. I don't know that, but maybe. Because it is, honestly, the best purpose-built trimmer that I've ever used. It's designed for loose skin. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, and I realize you may not have loose skin in those areas. That's none of my business. But, like, you know, it's easy to trim something that's nice and taut. But it's a little trickier when the skin's loose and they have the skin-safe technology and the ceramic blades and all that, so you avoid the nicks and the cuts and the stuff that's not good for the area down there. Right? You trim the hedge. You don't want to cut a whole branch off the hedge. You don't want to cut a whole branch off your privates either. So get the Lawnmower 4.0. It has long battery life, works in the shower. It's wet dry. It's got a button lock. It's got an LED light. It's got an immense battery life, but you can just set it in its cradle charger. It's the best. You can get deodorant. You can get toner. You can get by the way, the Weed Whacker, the ear and nose hair trimmer, like that thing's actually great and you need it. They've got nail clippers. It all comes in a beautiful shed bag. If you get the Performance Package 4.0, your choice, but you got to do it quick before spring gets the better of you. You're going to be out and about. You're going to be wearing maybe short shorts. You don't want anything coming out of the short shorts, that's for sure. So go to manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision, 20% off and free shipping worldwide. Manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision, 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Once again, what is that website? I think it's manscaped.com. What is the promo code? I think it's ArsenalVision, 20% off free shipping. And once you are all groomed and you're looking your best, you need the best talent working with you. When you need the best talent, when you need a championship team, the best talent is found at Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't have to go to 82 million job sites. You're guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, so you don't pay. That's the key. All those extra job sites, what a pain in the neck. What a waste of time. Instead, Indeed gives you things like time-saving tools like Instant Match, assessments, virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a job post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. I mean, come on, think about it. You only pay for something you need. Just had to cancel a trash service at my house because they wouldn't pick up my trash, but I was paying for it. Think about it. Indeed won't make you do that. They make it easy to hire great talent. They deliver 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. Okay, and now as part of my cunning plan to keep you here till the end of the podcast, I am joined by Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. We should all be feeling good, shouldn't we?
Had a chance to look at the table yet?
Yeah, I quite like it. He says before Spurs play Everton, and Everton are not very good. So let's see what happens.
Well, what could happen? Other than a Dele Alli hat trick, that's what could happen, and a hat trick of Iwobi assists for it, and I'd be here for that. It is the history of the Tottenham, after all. So, Clive, since we've had the chance to purr quite a bit over the good goals and all of that stuff, I'm going to deny you the purring, although I do not think of you as the cat type, although you have a voice that could make a Wolverine purr. But what we will do in this section, I think, is tackle 2 of the issues. We covered a bit, but that I think, from a tactical standpoint, are the issues that now Arteta will probably be wanting to address. And the first one I want to start with is just balance, the issue of balance and what's going on with the left pod versus the right pod. And obviously, depending on your biases and how you like to see the game, some people say, the left pod would work better if Smith Rowe was available, or other people say, we need to get Tavares in there, Tierney's not getting it done. Some people, Elliot will say the guy playing the left 8, isn't necessarily suited for that role, and that's shortcutting it. But I looked at the pass map Scott posted. You really see the right-hand bias, and I do think in this game, it was more evident than even it had been in the last few games where it was pretty clear. And I think it's telling, by the way, that Martinelli scores a beautiful goal, but from the top of the box in space, a situation he's not really getting into much in this system right now. So do you have thoughts on, other than the fact that Odegaard and Saka are just, next level sensational, why the left pod is maybe struggling to find the influence that we're getting from the right?
Yes, let's have a chat about this, right? So
I would love that. Chat away. I'll drink some coffee.
So what's changed in recent weeks, right? So it's always cause and effect. So what's changed? So we normally were a team that played on the elbow, really, with Tomiyasu in at right back, but he would underlap a little bit and he would be solid in midfield, make sure he looked after Ben White, make sure he underpinned Martin Odegaard, giving him quick early passes off both feet, and also quick passes to Saka, but doesn't really go past him unless the space is really there to go. So Saka comes into lane 4, then you go outside lane 5, give him some support, and he doesn't always cross it. He chops it back for the next phase. So I have a personal bias towards that. I love how Tomiyasu plays. So what's changed? Cedric's come in. And Cedric is better in the opponent's half than he is his half. So it seems to be Arteta has just switched the elbow around to the other side, right? So he's pushing on Cedric, he's getting the balls into Odegaard and Saka. Why wouldn't you? Because those two footballers are not too bad, are they, really? So, but the way Cedric plays, and we can decide, I don't really care if it's system or design, but Cedric will look to overlap immediately, all of the time. So if Saka's in lane 5, Cedric goes to lane 6. He's going running past the physio on the running track on the outside. He literally leaves the pitch, right? So now you could say, what's he doing? Why is he bringing the cavalry over? Like I used to say about Bellerin, remember? I used to say...
Maybe he's trying to bring Arteta into the play because he had a nice pre-assist.
I used to say about Bellerin, so consistency is a big thing of mine. Sometimes I say, you don't need to go. You're just bringing people into the picture. right? Just stay, just stand. But maybe that's what he's been asked to do, right? So, and because of that, if you're on the other side of the pitch, you naturally want to sit in. Because the left fullback takes his position from the right fullback, and the right fullback's by the corner flag, and guess what? The left fullback's going to be in the midfield somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Squeezed inside. And maybe when you're on the interior, that's not really Kieran Tierney's game. So I personally think sometimes the system needs to tweak because we've had changes within it. And you have to adapt to that. It doesn't mean just because you're playing a different role, you no longer can play football. You're just playing a different role that's requiring different attributes that may not be your primary attributes, but you bring something else. So Kieran Tierney now, I'd be expecting him to be hand grenading defensively in the middle, in the half spaces and collisioning and stopping transitions. I read somewhere last week that Arsenal have conceded almost the least or second least goals on transitions. And I'm sure Kieran Tierney is part of that when he comes inside, tackles, explodes people, and takes it off them and gives it to somebody else, and off we go, right? So the left-hand side is slightly not as slick, but what does slick look like for left-hand side? For me, it's worked with various people, but I still think it can work with Tierney, Shaka and Martinelli. It just works in a slightly different way. I think, Elliot, you pointed out last week, our left-hand side is the one that does most of the pressing, most of the ball recoveries, and then we get it and give it, right? So sometimes our left-hand side at the moment potentially should be more of a finishing side. So if you notice what's changed a little bit, Shaka is now running into the box when Cedric goes on the outside. He never ran into the box before. So obviously has a little tweak there to say, look, when Cedric goes, there's no point in leaving Lacazette on his own. Get in there on the back post and see what you can do. And so we're just evolving, mate, to be honest. And I think as fan watchers, we need to evolve in what we're seeing and then judge it based on what we're seeing, not judge them based on what we used to see 3 months ago when all we did was go to the left-hand side and put in crosses. We need to just tweak our views, our eyes a little bit more, our analysis a little bit more, and say, okay, what are we doing now? And I think that's what it is for me, mate. I think we just tweaked it round. We're going on the right elbow rather than the left elbow. And the players in that system are maybe no longer showing their primary skills or allowed to. And so they're showing something else. And we just need to adapt to that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that can be fun to do, depending on your definition of fun, I guess, is to go into something like a Who Scored or something that has a touch map. Forget heat maps, because heat maps tend to be average touch position. Pass maps are average touch positions. But if you can go in and look at a chalkboard of all touches, you can really get a very, very clear picture of how different these sides are operating. And, Clive, I absolutely think you're right. I mean, it's almost obvious at some point to say that, like, Cedric is being given a role that was formerly Tierney's role a bit more in the absence of Tomiyasu. And what's funny, one of the things I've praised Arteta for a lot, Clive, is that this new system, so many players seem so comfortable in their roles in a way that maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, they looked a little robotic or a little less comfortable. And maybe the one player right now who doesn't really look comfortable, or two, are Tierney and Shaka. Tierney being given, less freedom to bomb on. If you look at his touch map, it's a lot of stuff in the middle third, a few things on the edge of the final third, very few overlapping. Cedric getting to be much more aggressive, as you said.
Yeah.
If you look at Shaka, one thing that jumps out at me, and I'm curious, how you feel about this, Odegaard has the freedom to go around the outside, right? To get wide, to overlap Saka, to push Saka on the interior, even when it's not Cedric doing it. Yeah. And he really floats outside a lot. If you look at his touch map, there's a lot of stuff out by the touchline, which means Saka is able to get more central. Shaka is very rarely outside of Martinelli. And there's a lot less swapping. It feels to me like that left side has much more structural rigidity. Shaka stays in the half space. Martinelli stays on the wing. Tierney stays behind the two of them to some extent, kind of covering as the third center back. And, I don't know if that structure is there by design or because there's maybe a little lack of comfort in terms of all those players working together. But do you see that rigidity there in terms of especially sort of Shaka really pinning himself? And in this game, he was more double pivot than 8 versus like the Wolves game, but he's definitely pinning himself to a more central location than Odegaard is.
Yeah, I think when you're Arteta, you think to yourself, how can I get the best skill sets from the resources that I have? And someone like Cedric now has a certain skill set. And he said, you know what, I'm going to invest in you because you have got wonderful delivery in the last third. I want you there. I'm going to invest in you. Kieran, you sit yourself for a little while. We need you back there to stabilise us at the moment in time because Tomiyasu's out. Can you do that? Yeah, I can. Shaka, can you just underpin, step up 5 yards you normally do, try to progress the ball on the angle, on the slant, can you progress it slightly up and then push on into the box? I know it's not your game, but can you do it? I actually think those two are like heroes because they're not doing what they'd like to do, but they're trying to do it. And they're coaches' dreams. They are coaches' dreams, honestly. And so I'd rather...
You mean like wherever I put you, I can get a reasonable level of performance, even if it's not, the best of your game.
I'm getting a 7 out of 10 from you. And because of that, we are, we're winning games of football. If I ask Cedric to do Tomiyasu's job, then we're going to struggle from stability perspective because we'll be defending with 2. We don't want Cedric standing still. We want him moving because that's what he does. If we had been standing into a pseudo back 3 in our right-hand side underlapping, which he does on occasions, he's not dumb, right? He can do it. But people are going to pick on him. Right, so the challenge was a few weeks ago. We were looking at our left side, and Granit Xhaka was getting sent off because he'd been left on his own in that left-hand channel. It made an adjustment for that. I'm sick of you being sent off in the last man, so no, I'm going to keep Kieran Tierney behind you, right? And make sure that you're in areas that can affect us going forward and stabilise our central midfield. Now, Tomiyasu he's comfortable being in that space, and I think he's a critical person for a team. I honestly do. I think he's absolutely vital. I can't wait for him to be back because I think he allows our better players to be better than they are. So at the moment, we're compensating. We're doing really well at it. The last 4 games, we've won them all. But for me, it's not the maximum we can get from these resources at the moment because that key player in Tomiyasu is not quite there to do the job, which enables Ben White to be more stable, which enables Gabriel to know his role. Kieran Tierney knows his role. And it'd be interesting to see what Shaka's role will be when Tomiyasu comes back in. Will he still be that left 8 pushing on? I think he will. And I think then we're going to see a little bit more freedom on the left-hand side, which is going to make your boy Martinelli and/or Smith Rowe look really, really good. And now we're going to have both sides bombing because Martin Odegaard has just gone to a different level and as had his mate Bukayo Saka. So This is really, really interesting. I sent a tweet out saying, this feels so exciting. But what's really exciting is that we all know this is just a start. This is just a start. And what's really exciting is what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I know, look, people will obviously say your love for Martinelli is unbounded and maybe unfounded as well. But I do love the player, and the goal he scores is sensational. And you look at where it comes from, and the play starts on the right. He intelligently runs to the space at the top of the box. He gets the one-touch layoff, and boom, it's a goal. Sort of similar to what Saka gets for his goal, the one-touch layoff, although Saka's is inside the box. And even in a game where Martinelli, by a lot of people's standards, was poor, he still gets 3 shots, 2 in the box, 1 at the top of the box that he scores. I do think that the balance, if it's a little better, makes this a little less predictable. And I want to ask you a question about Shaka, because something that you say that really resonates with me is that sometimes you lose players, you lose them a little bit.
Yep.
And I do wonder if maybe, and in this game in particular, we saw it, if this role is causing Arteta to lose Shaka a bit. Let me explain what I mean. There were 7 outfield players who had more touches than Granit Xhaka in this game. 7. That never happens. That's not who he is. And then at the end of the game, he plays that, that weird crossfield ball that's not on, and he doesn't track back and leaves White exposed. And you remember when they put the video out of Shaka? The Arsenal put the captain video kind of camera, you know what I mean? He was pointing and shouting and geeing up the team and instructing, and we all were wowed by his on-pitch leadership. The guy has a big personality, and I think that starts with the ball being at his feet. When he was in the double pivot with Partey, I think one of our criticisms was Partey deferred to him because that's who Shaka is. When he's 8th in the team in touches, and he's in a role where he maybe doesn't have the comfort level, do we lose him? I mean, look, I've never been his biggest fan, but there are some things he's excellent at and some things he can give you. And I just wonder if Arteta's going to lose him a little bit in a role like this, because that Granit Xhaka with, just 54 touches in a game. That's not him, you know?
No, it isn't. And Thomas Partey is now, he's got the keys to the car.
Yeah, 93.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And there was not so long ago, now it was the other way around, literally. You know, and they were both on the same pitch, but Shaka was taking all the primary roles. I literally saw moments in this game where Shaka couldn't wait to give it to Partey or go out of his way. Mm-hmm. You know, he literally did. And my thing is, the team is developing past him, you know, and I'm all right with it. You know, I genuinely am, because the player that's required on that left-hand side, and there are different ways to look at that position. I say left-hand side, we're talking left centre mid, right? That gets on the angle in possession and goes into a 4-4-2 out of possession. That's what we're really talking about, right? So someone's got to be comfortable in a double six when the other team's got good possession, and somebody can be a left eight when we've got the ball and really progress. And what does that play look like? Does it need to be a metronome again? Or does it need to be somebody sprinty, agile, that can push it, get after it? Also, if you're trapped at left back on your own, you're not looking like a fish out of water. There's just different players that we could go for, right? So it's going to be so interesting to see how we develop that position and the player that we eventually choose to make that work. I am so excited to see who we actually land on. I'm so excited. And once we have it, someone who can push it, move, switch positions, go around people, you know, just a bit more ingenuity, can go into the box, edge of the box, shoot. Man, this team has got so much growth potential. It really has. I mean, not just in the players that we currently have, but if we can find the right players to enable what we're currently doing. When I hear you say the word system, Elliot, I've got to be honest with you, mate, I go, ooh. I think there are...
It's a weird noise. I wouldn't make it a lot.
I think there are principles of play that are developing, right? So we've spoken about the base pod, the right pod, the left pod, and the central pivot, the central line, which is overburdened, the middle spine. I'm not sure that's going to change too much, but I do think the players within it have significant potential to rotate, move, and the player types change. And what I noticed in this game, and I've just had one little look at it, not massively close, and I will have a look at it if you're going to do a rewatch this week. But I saw situations where Lacazette was on the right wing, Saka was at centre forward. I saw situations where Shaka was at centre forward. We're starting to see Arsene Wenger rotation of pieces within the zones. And that is something that to me is the next phase. Rotation, bi-directional movement, people take up different positions within those pods and being comfortable on the outside. And you mentioned Odegaard comfortable in lane 5 on the outside, Shaka not. Guess what? The next signing is going to be somebody happy on the interior and the exterior. You got a centre forward like Lacazette playing on the right wing to allow Saka to go centre forward. Guess what the next sign's going to be? Someone who's really happy, a forward who's really happy on the outside and inside. So if he is caught outside, he can skin his man. He's not a fish out of water. The potential for growth with the right signings, I am so excited. It's beyond belief. Honestly, beyond belief. Because the fundamentals and the principles of how we play and how we group, how we progress, the aggression we have from playing by the touchline to absolutely crush and contract into the middle and arrive into the open space that we've left vacated and really arrive there in numbers. That's a principle that's not going to change. It's only going to improve with more players that can do it. And I think this is so, whether you call it system or principles of play, maybe it's just nomenclature, I'm not too sure. But I really like what we're doing. It feels very modern and very much repeatable.
Yeah. And so I guess before we get on to one other main talking point I wanted to cover with you, let me just ask you in terms of personnel. I think there are some people that would look at the way Tierney's handling this role or the way Shaka's handling this role, set aside the Martinelli thing, it's Martinelli or ESR, fine, whatever, and would say Arteta should try someone else in one of those positions. There's some calls, maybe Tavares should get a look in. My opinion of that, I'll give it before you do, which is typical.
Which is normal.
Is just, right, which is just, if Tierney's being asked to play more of the quote-unquote Tomiyasu role, well, that's definitely not who Tavares is, right? So I don't know if that's the right call. The other thing would be like, could someone who's maybe a little more of a small space player like Sambi do what Shaq is doing now a little more effectively, or even Smith Rowe if you want to get really into trying to say let's have an Odegaard on the left. Not that I think Smith Rowe has the sort of technical level yet passing wise that Odegaard does, but like, do you see either of those changes, maybe in particular in the left 8, being something worth trying now, or is this a case of grit your teeth, get that top 4 position and figure it out in the summer?
Yeah, I think I've had the Sambi thought go through my mind as well. I think he could do it easy.
You just haven't seen him in so long now. Who knows what, what he's ready for.
What shape he's in, etc. Yeah. And on certain days, like, when we're pushing teams back, you're thinking, well, Shaka, you're redundant here. Let's get Smith Rowe. He can do that job. I think you're right. I think you look at the statistics when Shaka and Partey play, and that tells you why the manager's picking them both, regardless of whether he's suited or not. There are things that happen on the pitch, apart from late crossfield balls that not needed to happen when your substitute left winger just come on while you feed it to his feet. Thank you very much. But no need to get flashy and switch across the pitch. Apart from things like that, he seemed to do things that allow us to win. When those two play, we win games. If Shaka and Partey play majority of this season, I'm pretty confident where we're going to finish. I really mean that. And because they understand, they are the experience too, right? With Lacazette in there, they are the ones to make sure people are doing the right things all the time, their concentration levels are correct, etc. And they don't get stressed. There was a moment in this game towards the end, I don't know if you remember, Elliot, when the ball dropped around Gabriel just near the penalty box. He hesitated on clearing it. He could have given a penalty away if he went wrong. And we've gone from a situation where we're playing like 1982 Brazil to nearly giving away a penalty in the last 2 minutes. And where does that come from? Because, it comes from nervousness, the prize, managing stress. And we need, although you're absolutely right, Sambi's probably a better profile fit because he can manipulate the ball. He's got different layers of passing, but he hasn't got the experience of managing these critical moments with 30 million Arsenal fans begging for the final whistle.
I guess what I would say, right, is that like the counterpoint to that is it would have been a much less stressful final few minutes if the guy who's playing ahead of him doesn't play a silly cross-field ball and then amble back to not help out his center back. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're 6 to 1, half dozen the other.
It is. What I'm trying to say to you is...
To be fair, by the way, Sambi had some dreadful giveaways and really collapses in some big games earlier this season. So I'm not suggesting remotely, by the way, that he doesn't...
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's the obvious tailor-made solution, not remotely.
Yeah, you're doing what every fan does. When the game's going on, you're thinking, I wonder if this guy could do a better job. I wonder if this guy... I do it. I do it all the time. I make subs in my own mind, right? And I say, Smith Rowe could have done that job, but he wasn't fit on this occasion. I'm thinking, flipping it, Ainsley, what are you doing sitting on the bench in Roma? Why are you in this role? You could do a job for us here. It is quite... And some people say, well, Guendouzi's perfect for this role. And of course, when someone runs past him, we forget that he can't defend, right? So we all go through this in our minds. When it comes down to it, when Shaka and Partey play, we tend to win football matches, and there's a big enough sample size with that. A real big sample size of that. And so if I'm the manager and I'm trying to get Arsenal Football Club into the promised land again, I know what I'm doing. I'm sticking with this, even though it's a bit lumpy, until the game state absolutely screams for something else, and then I'll make that change.
And to be fair, like when you're on a run of 10 games like we're on, and Manchester United have alienated the biggest ego in world football and have just gone a second half without having a shot, and Tottenham Hotspur have a coach that is literally asking to be sacked, and those are the guys trying to chase you down for top 4, you're not in the position where you need to be reacting, right? Sometimes one of the best things a manager can do, one of the biggest skills a manager can have, is to do nothing, is to just take a beat, right? And let it percolate because it's percolating just fine right now. So don't overcoach sometimes. And like, I think, Arteta, I will say in this game, seemed to be in some heated conversations with Granit Xhaka. For the people that were at the game, they suggested that like he was pretty frustrated with him at times in the game. I'm sure he understands where some of the areas for improvement are, but sometimes what you've got that's working is better than changing to something that is unproven. I mean, there's a saying in the NFL for teams that are losing, which is not us right now, that the most popular guy in town is the backup quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But like that doesn't always work out.
So I tell you what my feeling is with that? Yeah. And I thought, well, for one, Arteta will always speak to Shaka because he's the coach on the pitch, right? So he's the true leader, shall we say? And I think we just lacked a bit of patience in possession to control the game, and we didn't control our distances as well as I thought we should do. I think we became a little bit cocky, if I'm honest with you. And why wouldn't we? We were literally flowing and flicking around corners, and we looked unbelievable. And we got a bit seduced by our own brilliance offensively, and we forgot the other side of the game. That's all that happened. And this is a dream result, actually, because there's enough there to chew on. So in the video session today, they're getting it. Trust me, they are getting it today about what they didn't do. But you're doing this on the back of a win. And so from a coaching perspective, this is a dream because I can keep their feet on the ground. We can see the couple of goals. The mistakes are fixable. Let's get back to what we do, controlling the football, controlling phases of the game for longer, and making sure we respect both sides of the football match, right? And so when we go into the next 3 games in 6 days, this is a perfect lead-in to those games. It's perfect. If we'd gone 3-3, mate, we'd have been rough today. Would have been rough, but we didn't. So we managed to learn lessons while losing nothing points-wise.
Well, and you're transitioning perfectly to my next topic, which is about defending. And for the record, by the way, like if we're doing a rewatch this week, we scored 3 goals you could hang in the Louvre. We're doing a fucking rewatch. I don't know what you're talking about.
You keep it a good section, didn't you, Elliot? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, I'll take 38 3-2s over 38 1-0. So that's just how I'm wired. And I do think, look, Clive, we were at that Crystal Palace game. And so it's one that sticks in the memory for me. And there was a period of time this season where we would take 1-0 leads and stop being in the game at all. The Palace game is a great example. We took a 1-0 lead. We had 30% possession for the next hour, 1 shot for the next hour, 5 passing sequences of greater than 3 passes or more in an hour. We just stopped being a factor in the game. And we get a late equalizer, so that's not a loss. Great. But that Palace team was totally overwhelmed by us to start the game, and we ceded the impetus. And we did that a lot previously. Yeah. Yes, we are more open now. But when you are hurting teams the way we are hurting them, I still think it is a more, as they might say in the stats community, plus EV, plus expected value way of picking up points. We beat Brentford because we had the extra goal when we gave away a dumb one. We beat Watford because we had the extra 2 goals when we gave away the dumb one. And I can't help it, Clive. Like, this is the football that speaks to me. I think when you go through the transition of being more pressing, more front-footed, and more attacking, one of the things you're asking your defenders to do is do more pure defending in space without the support as much, running back to their goal a little more. Some of that, structure and solidity where the defenders were protected by all their mates. Now you have Ben White having to defend in space one-on-one. You have Gabriel having to do it. And sure, you're seeing some cracks because they haven't had to do a ton of that in the last couple of seasons, but the trade-off is well worth it for me. I'm curious how you see the balance between attack and defense, because to be fair, we probably gave up a few more big chances in this game than you really should against a Watford. So I liked Arteta's comment saying the way you kill this game is you have 300,000 passes in their half. I love that because my whiskers mode, worry mode is Arteta will look at this and say, we got to go back to being a little more back to front. We got to take a step back. I'm glad that's not what his comments are, that he seems really wedded to this front-footed approach, but I'm curious if you think the balance is off now.
Yeah, we just lost a bit of control and patience, right? So I think if I take a step back slightly, we used to play in bursts of football previously, and we'd do really well for 20 minutes. If it went well, even the Spurs home game, if you watch that game again, we was only good for 25 minutes. The rest of it, we weren't that great. Great moments for us for results-wise, but we weren't good for the full night like we were against West Ham and Villa and Brentford, and Wolves. These are monster performances, right? So what used to happen was I felt that we didn't quite have the belief we have now. That's what's changed for me. The belief of where we are, what our talent is, and consistent application over longer periods of time. And that's what's changed for me. You could say back to Everton game, the one game that really annoys me this season, really, Everton and Man United. You could look at it territorially and say we're playing in the wrong areas, etc. We were a bit passive, and we were playing punk rock football then. And then when we got our goals, we don't know what to do. We just played in the wrong areas. Now we're far more aggressive, territorially, playing in the right areas, getting there more quickly, and we're sustaining our quality for longer. And the belief, if anything, offensively, was too high at the weekend because I think like I said earlier, I think we didn't quite have the balance. Like I said, I'm not worried, Elliot, by this at all. I think the goal they scored was a worldie. We should have blocked the cross. And then the second goal was just overindulgence in midfield and then not quite tracking our runners, a little bounce, and they've got a goal. The goalkeeper comes out, turned into a peanut again, made himself smaller, and it rolls under him. And we got enough there to work on. So I'm not remotely worried about this being a trend. I just want to see us restore the balance because Leicester, Liverpool, and Villa will punish us if we're not switched on defensively in those 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, it is obviously a concern in the sense that if you present the kind of chances we presented to Watford to Leicester, for example, then you're talking about Jamie Vardy and James Maddison and what's his name? The guy on the left.
Daka and Harvey Barnes.
Harvey Barnes, yeah. They're not going to squander them. Most likely. I mean, they may, hopefully. But like, I also don't know that I see us doing that. And, you know, it is the case.
You lift your game for the right opponents, don't you, mate? You do. You lift your game, you lift your levels. But what we're seeing,
right, Clive? I mean, if you're going up against a Watford and you're creating chances for fun, maybe the coaches go out there, keep pushing them. The goals are going to come. Whereas against a Leicester, you may decide to handle game states differently, right? I mean, to be fair, Leicester can't defend either. So.
When I say lift your levels, I want to reiterate this. Some of those attacking levels were as good as I've seen for a long time. You know, it was beautiful. You know, where we carved up the pitch. I mean, it was beautiful. You know, the centrality from Partey always being available. The amount of disguised passes that he put in, it was just a joke. I mean, he's catching us out with them, right? So, I mean, the disguise, the awareness of one touch, the speed and aggression to contract. I mean, oh my goodness, it was just brilliant. And we're nitpicking on certain things about the shape and the structure and the potential tip-top play of our left-hand pod, for example. But mate, we're nitpicking at the top 5 percentile here. You know, this is really exciting where we're going. I suppose we're looking at the horizon and where we could be, and where these players are going to go within this structure, which I don't see us changing too much. Just the players within it. It is even more exciting because this is really, really sustainable. But we still need to get some young men over the line who've never been to this line before. And we saw a little preview of that when people are nervous, what could happen towards the end of this game.
And it's a reminder, too. I mean, Arsene Wenger, you know, played a football that brought our attacking players to life, but it really exposed center backs, right? It really exposed fullbacks. It put them into really difficult situations. And some of them thrived. Koscielny and Mertesacker had a brilliant partnership. Some of them crumbled and their careers melted, you know, like the snow will never do here in Minnesota. But ultimately, you know, our central defenders are being asked to do a little bit more defending in space, a little bit more isolated defending than maybe Arteta would want, but maybe than they have in the past. That's part of the patterns of play that we're developing. Now, I also thought, look, maybe a little arrogance crept into our game in this game. Their first goal, all right, it's a wonder goal to some extent, but like, why is Martinelli having to cover 2 guys on the wing? Why, so, you know, no one covers the overlap at all. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we go rewatch for that, mate. But yeah, as the arriving player was coming, what should happen that Shaka should get a bit tighter and then Martinelli can go with the runner. But it just didn't happen. I do think it was arrogance. I think, yeah, go on then. Cross on the run, see what can happen. Oh, bicycle kick, goal. It's literally like that. You know, you do get like that. Players feel it on the pitch. They think, okay, we're better than you today. We're going to beat you no matter what. Fans were thinking, come on, we just need 3 points. Man United are hopefully going to lose. Can you just get the job done so we can relax? And so we have different emotions going into the game. But on the pitch, I think our players felt they were way better. They were enjoying themselves and maybe disrespected parts of the game defensively. Easy to fix, mate. Don't stress.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, like, I'm not stressed. Like, the funny thing is, as the guy who is the worrier, the resident worrier, like, this is the football I love. And I get that it's going to mean sometimes opportunities are given to the other side. Here's the great thing, though, right? Goals are very hard to score. Chances are missed more than they are taken. So if you get loads of good chances and score 3 goals, but give up a couple of good chances at the other end, okay, when you're unlucky, you'll get absolutely clinically punished for those couple good chances you give up. But more often than not, they might take one of the two and you win 3-1. And like, that's fine. Look, there were just some ropey displays here. Like Ramsdale, he's playing a little on the edge right now. If we're being completely honest, Gabriel's going through his first wobble of the season, I think. I think it's fair to maybe say that.
Yeah, he's had a couple, but like I say, I see all these things. I watched it too. I see all these things. I see it playing out from the back, and I'm thinking, can't you just clip it a little bit longer? This is where you have a battle with yourself emotionally. We want to keep playing the way we play. It's important to play the way we play. It's important not to get nervous and start doing things that we don't do. These are not our principles. And so on one angle, I'm thinking, Ramsdale, come on, man, do a better pass. But this is how we play. And when he whips it between two people staying 10 yards apart, we all go, what a great goalkeeper. I didn't know he could kick it that well. Yep. The only people who don't make mistakes are the people who don't do anything, right? Don't try anything. And so I want him to keep trying. I want him to keep playing where we're playing because we can all see the improvement. The challenge is potentially game management, when to do it. 10 minutes before you enter the game, do we need to do the pass like that? But hey, look, like I say, we got away with it. We got away with it. We learned something about ourselves. It's a reminder, don't disrespect the football match because it will bite you. Right? So, like I say, it's a great day for the coaches, Elliot. Honestly, trust me. And now we can reset again before a big week upcoming.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say that, like, I also think given the emotion involved in those Wolves games, and we know why that emotion was there, and the way we won it, coming down from that, playing a team that's struggling towards the bottom of the table, fighting for their life in front of their home fans, knowing that, if we get through that, we're in the top 4, and then we've got 3 games in a week coming up next week. Like, Scott called it a trap game on the Instant Reaction pod. I think it is. You see a lot of teams drop points in these situations, get ambushed, go through hard moments. Look, you score 3 goals, you're going to win most of the time. And I like this way of playing. So I'm certainly fine with us continuing to play this way. And I think the more we play this way, the more we will create more chances. I actually thought we left a lot of goals on the pitch in this game. And the more our defenders will normalize to having to be a little more alive to some of the danger that's going to be created going the other way. So I just think it will get better and better. And yeah, I mean, Clive, look, my biggest regret from this game, ironically, is the goals we left out there, not really the errors we made that gave them chances.
Yeah, they're lucky. Our top scorer wasn't fit to play, right? So put Smith Rowe into the mix here. We got another player to come on who can bounce forward and really add some good decisions in the last third. I mean, there's still work to do. We know that we're a little bit light as a squad overall, particularly if we're in Europe next year. But yeah, we know we've got a situation at centre forward and at left 8, but they're not massive situations right now. We talk about 2 experienced international footballers that are trying to carry a young team over the line. I'm prepared to wear the fact they got leaden boots on occasions, as long as they turn up in the big moments. And those big moments are just round the corner.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good place to leave it. We'll do a rewatch. We'll do a couple other fun pods for patrons throughout the week, but we'll have obviously a second pod this week for everybody. So wherever you join us, we're just glad you're here. And hope you like this one. I mean, I look, when you score goals like that, it doesn't matter what else happens. If you get 3 points and score goals like that, you better have enjoyed the game, and I sure did. So we have, a really big week coming up next week. It starts with Leicester on Sunday. And then what is it? It's Leicester, Liverpool, and Villa. Yep. And obviously the good news is the first 2 are at home, and it's away to Liverpool, to Villa, who, let's face it, they look pretty good right now. And Coutinho has made a big difference.
Leicester just had a win. Liverpool in form, and Villa have refound themselves. So this is it, mate. This is the one.
Vardy's back for Leicester. So this is the week. This is the week to polish it off, especially considering, United and Spurs are going to play each other. I don't know. Has the United-Liverpool match been rescheduled yet? I don't think so.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, all right. We'll figure it all out. Okay, let's leave it there. Clive's on Twitter. Clive PFC. Thanks, bud.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. Block me on Twitter. Yankee Gunner. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Leicester 0.